March 17th, 1943. The North Atlantic roars like a living beast. 41 merchant ships form a massive convoy codenamed HX-229, cutting through 15-foot swells under a bruised black sky. The wind slams into Liberty's ship's broadside, steel groans, waves hammer hulls. The convoy carries 140,000 tons of food, fuel, and ammunition. A lifeline Britain cannot afford to lose. On one of those ships, deep in the galley, Cook Thomas Tommy Lawson, age 28, steadies a pot as the deck pitches hard to port. His friend William Eustace braces against the sink as water sloshes across the floor. Upstairs, Captain James Bannerman squints through his binoculars from the bridge wing. He knows what's out there even if he can't see it. U-boats. They've been waiting for this convoy. They always are. Beneath the surface, 600 yards off the port beam, U-758 drifts silent at 400 feet. Captain Manfred Littnet leans over the shoulder of his hydrophone operator, a young sailor with big ears and shaking hands. The boy whispers, "Temas kertridueisi." Multiple propellers, heavy machinery noise. Estimated 40 ships. Littnet's lips curl into a small, hungry smile. The wolf pack is already in position. It's just a matter of time. The Allied escorts zigzag in the darkness, scanning with ASDIC sonar. But they can't stop what's coming. For weeks, U-boat crews have been listening, plotting the convoy's approach by the sound alone. Merchant ships are loud, so loud that German hydrophones can detect them from 80 nautical miles away. Even individual vessels give themselves away up to 12 miles. Propeller cavitation, shaft vibration, and hull resonance make a symphony for the hunters below. Every turn of every blade is like a flare in the blackness of the ocean. Lawson isn't a scientist or a naval officer. He's a cook. He dropped out of school at 14. He has no business thinking about underwater acoustics. And yet night after night in the bowels of the ship he listens. The engine room is brutally hot. The turbines screaming, steam lines rattling. But Lawson hears something different. The sound isn't just noise, it's traveling. Through the steel, through the hull, into the water. He doesn't yet have the words for it, but what he's hearing is what the Germans have already mastered. The voice of the convoy. 2 weeks earlier, during a U-boat alert, Lawson had crouched near the main steam line, feeling the deck vibrate beneath his hands. Torpedo struck a vessel 2 columns over. Through the hull, he heard the dull, hollow roar of water rushing in. And then silence. When a ship sinks, its engines die, its propellers stop, its vibration vanishes. And in that silence, a thought came to him so strange it almost frightened him. What if a ship could go quiet on purpose, without going down? Nobody listens to cooks. He mentioned it to the ship's engineer, Donald McLeod, who barked a laugh. He told the first mate, who waved him off. He told Captain Bannerman, who sighed and told him to focus on feeding the crew. Still, the idea stuck. At night, when the ship pitched through the swells, Lawson scribbled in a battered notebook, sketches of water-filled chambers around the propeller shaft, ballast tanks placed against vibration points, controlled flooding systems that wouldn't sink the ship, but might mute it. It made sense in his head, even if everyone else thought it was madness. March 24, 1943. When the William Eustace docks in Liverpool, Lawson doesn't head for the pub like everyone else. He walks straight to the Western Approaches Command headquarters and tries to see an admiral. 2 Royal Navy Shore Patrol officers grab his arms. "This is restricted," one of them growls. But Lawson refuses to leave. "I need to talk to someone about convoy noise," he insists. Everyone's got ideas. "Yank," one of the guards mutters, dragging him toward the door. Then, a voice cuts through the lobby. "Wait!" Commander Peter Gretton, 29, is bone-tired from escorting convoys through the North Atlantic gauntlet. He's lost 13 merchant ships in one run. He's furious at the U-boats and desperate for anything that might give his escorts an edge. He hears Lawson's words, convoy noise, and stops. "What did you say?" Lawson, sweating and half expecting to be thrown out, blurts out everything. How a ship's noise vanishes when it floods. How maybe water could be used deliberately to muffle the sound. He speaks fast, clumsy, nervous. Gretton folds his arms, skeptical. "Water inside a ship is called sinking," he says flatly. "Not if you control it," Lawson replies. "You don't flood the ship. You flood chambers. Water blocks vibration better than air." Gretton almost laughs. Almost. But then he pauses. He knows water absorbs sound. And they've tried everything else. March 25, 1943. HM Dockyard, Liverpool. Against every regulation, Gretton brings Lawson to HMS Sunflower, a Flower-class corvette in dry dock for repairs. They jury-rig a prototype. Old oil drums welded around the propeller shaft, filled with seawater. Rubber bladders pressed against engine mounts. Sandbags to simulate distributed weight. It's crude, ugly, and entirely unauthorized. March 28th. The Sunflower glides into the Mersey River at low speed. The submarine HMS Trespasser submerges 500 yards away, hydrophones ready. A signal comes back. We hear you clear as day. Failure. But Lawson notices the problem immediately. The drums aren't watertight. They've drained. Seal them, he insists. Gretton hesitates, court-martial territory, but finally mutters, 3 more days. They work through the night. April 2nd, 1943. Second test. This time the drums are sealed. The bladders are tight. Sunflower powers up the river again. Trespasser listens. This time there's no signal. The ship vanishes from hydrophones at 400 yards. When Gretton hears the report, his face goes pale. It worked. Cook's half-crazy idea worked. April 3rd. Gretton storms into Admiral MaxHorton's war room with Lawson in tow. Horton, a legend of the submarine service, listens as Gretton lays out the data. Dr. Harold Burris, the chief naval architect who had declared acoustic dampening impossible, sneers when he sees Lawson. A cook, he says. You're telling me a cook solved this problem? Gretton doesn't flinch. I'm telling you he made a ship disappear from hydrophones. Horton turns to Lawson. Explain it to me simply. Lawson's throat is dry. Sir, engines vibrate. Those vibrations travel through the hull into the water. But water absorbs vibration better than air or steel. If you put water-filled chambers around the shafts and mounts, the noise doesn't reach the ocean. The sub doesn't hear you. Burris explodes about stability, corrosion, weight. Lawson answers calmly. We tested it. It works. Horton looks out the window for a long time. Then he turns back to the room. You'll retrofit 6 merchant ships in Convoy on 184. Departure in 8 days. If it works, we scale it. If it fails, Gretton, enjoy the Orkneys. April 11-18, 1943, Liverpool. 6 Liberty ships are modified. SS Daniel Webster, SS James Herod, SS John Davenport, SS Samuel Elliott, SS Benjamin Kai, and Lawson's own SS William Eustace. Steel cylinders, water bladders. Added weight, 18 tons per ship. Total installation time, 64 hours each. The engineers call it plumbing nonsense. The hydrophone operators don't. Detection range drops from 11.7 miles to 0.4 April 22nd, 1943. Convoy on 184 sails. 43 ships. 6 of them sound like ghosts. April 25th, 1943. Mid-Atlantic, 2:14 a.m. Aboard U-264, Captain Hartwig leans over his hydrophone operator. Report. Some loud. Some silent, the operator says nervously. Hartwig frowns. That's impossible. But it's true. Out of 43 ships, he hears only 27. 6 are acoustically invisible. He can see them through his periscope, but not through his ears. He chooses the loudest targets. The Wolf Pack does the same. 18 hours of chaos follow. Torpedoes flash through the black water. 9 ships go down. 47,000 tons of cargo sinks beneath the waves. 3,200 men are adrift in lifeboats. But the 6 modified ships? Not a scratch. They slide through the gauntlet unheard, unseen, untouched. When Convoy on 184 reaches New York on May 7, 1943, Gretton's message to London is blunt. Modified vessels showed 0 enemy engagement, despite comparable positions within convoy formation. Acoustic dampening effective under combat conditions. May 12, 1943. Western approaches command. Statisticians pore over the numbers. Before acoustic dampening, average U-boat detection range 11.4 nautical miles. Convoy loss rate 31%. U-boat kill ratio 1.2 per convoy. After dampening detection range 0.6 miles. Loss rate 4.7%. U-boat kill ratio 4.8. German submarines that once stalked convoys from 50 miles away now have to approach within a few thousand yards, well within sonar, radar, and visual range. The Wolfpack's greatest strength, long-range detection, collapses overnight. May 1943 becomes known in German naval history as Black May. Allied forces sink 41 U-boats, a quarter of Germany's operational fleet, while losing only 58 merchant ships compared to 96 in March. Admiral Karl Dönitz writes in his diary, "The enemy has achieved technical supremacy in acoustic detection, which has robbed U-boats of their most effective weapon. Surprise. A captured German hydrophone operator from U-954, sunk on May 19, tells interrogators, "We could not understand what happened. Sometimes we heard convoy sounds from great distance. Other times ships were practically on top of us before we detected them. It was as if the ocean had become silent." July 1943, fleet-wide implementation. 847 merchant ships are retrofitted with Lawson system. Installation time drops to 48 hours. Cost, $20,000 per ship, 1/10 the price of building a new vessel. From May through December 1943, Allied losses fall sharply. U-boats are no longer the hunters. They're being hunted. By the end of 1943, German wolfpacks are in retreat. Convoys that once feared crossing the Atlantic now roar through under the protection of escorts and their own silence. The tide of the war at sea turns not with a new ship or a new bomb, but with a cook's notebook scribbles and a few barrels of water, post-war. In 1946, Admiral Sir MaxHorton writes in his memoir, "Among the many innovations that secured victory in the Atlantic, radar, escort carriers, huff-duff, none was as simple or as effective as Lawson's acoustic dampening system." Commander Peter Gretton writes in his 1964 book, "Tommy Lawson never fired a shot in anger. He never commanded a ship, but he saved more lives than any captain in the Royal Navy. His genius was seeing what everyone else missed. The solution wasn't more technology. It was better use of the ocean itself." Between April 1943 and 1945-2047, Allied merchant ships and 164 Royal Navy escorts were fitted with Lawson's system. Total cost, $6.2 million. Total lives saved, thousands. Modern prairie masker systems used by the U.S. Navy still work on the same principle. Instead of static water chambers, they use compressed air bubbles to mask machinery noise. But the foundation, the core idea, belongs to a cook who once stared at a pipe in a galley and listened harder than anyone else. Tommy Lawson never sought fame. He went back to Boston after the war, opened a diner in Dorchester, married, had 3 kids, and never told anyone what he'd done. When he died in 1991, his obituary called him a merchant marine veteran and restaurant owner. It didn't mention the Battle of the Atlantic. It didn't mention the thousands of men who came home because of him. 3 aging Royal Navy officers stood at his funeral. They had once crossed the North Atlantic in convoys shielded by his idea. One of them left a folded piece of paper on his coffin. "Because of you, we came home." Innovation doesn't always come from laboratories or admirals' war rooms. Sometimes it comes from a man in a kitchen, listening to a sound that everyone else ignores. In 1943, Tommy Lawson gave the Atlantic convoys the one thing they'd never had before: silence. 80 years later, the U.S. Navy still uses that silence to protect its ships. A cook with no degree, no rank, and no recognition changed the course of the longest, deadliest naval battle of the Second World War. If this story moved you, tell us what you would have done in Lawson's place. Would you have spoken up when everyone told you to stay quiet? Comment your thoughts below. And if you want to hear more forgotten stories that changed the war, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is WW2 Struggle, where the smallest voices can echo across history.